So the band will help facilitate that. Really works well to help not only proprioceptively for people, but also just gives them a sense of elasticity because it's an elastic band. So it feeds into those areas too, just even mentally. So let's look at the lateral one first. So the lateral line is responsible for you to walk, right, and to stand on one leg. So weight transfer. If I go to stand on my right leg, I have to transfer my weight here. If this whole lateral line is not strong, then I'm going to feel compromised. And that's what happens as people get older. They start losing the sense of weight transfer and they start shuffling, right? So they no longer load the tissue, and we all know that if you don't load, it doesn't adapt, right? It can maladapt without load. So we want to make sure we're loading that tissue. So the first one is, I call it puppet on a string. You can call it anything you want, but that's kind of a fun name for it. Is you're going to try this if you're up for it. You stand inside, and you want to make sure when you stand inside, and there's bands up here if you need a band, sir. There's a band right up here you can use. And when you stand inside, you want to make sure it's not too tight between your 2 feet because you're going to be using your feet to press with. So make sure you've got a little bit of play there, okay? And you're going to need to separate yourselves a bit. So come stagger each other's stance, okay? This is called puppet on a string, so I'm going to bend my knees and put this up over my shoulders. So not on the neck though, okay? Make sure you're holding it with your hands out here, kind of like a square almost, okay? Now, in this exercise, what we want to do is first off, just notice the tensional network that we just created by putting the band. It's a compressive band, right? So you're going to feel, if you've got flexion give bias people, they're going to push against it, so it's actually a good thing. Now, from there, to transfer weight under one leg, I want to use my other leg to push and my arms, but try not to use all your arms or your shoulders will get really tired. Okay, so you're going to press and use your leg, transfer the weight, and then transfer the weight. So see if you can alternate by pushing outward into the tensional network of the band. Out. Out. Good. I could do this oppositionally, or I could do it ipsilaterally, right? So I could actually do that. Ipsilateral, contralateral. Okay, so either way you want to do it, you can. All right, so pressing out, learning weight transfer in this tensional net. Then you just take that band off and notice how you feel. Different, right? You have a little sense of decompression. So usually people like the sensation. Okay, that's the lateral line, which is one example of the lateral. The next one that we're going to work on is the posterior oblique, which means, if you have your picture there, but your lat through the thoracolumbar fascia into the, the glute into the thoracolumbar fascia into the lat, okay? On both sides. And you know, these are maps, right? They don't actually end, like superhighways, but they don't actually end, okay? There's this forced transmission belts. Think of them as forced transmission belts. But the picture shows a start and a stop, but they actually don't start and stop. It's just these are the areas where you're going to have the tension of the collagen fibers in the fascia. If they've been training properly, they're going to have those continuities. If they haven't been, then they're not. So let's do this together. Put it on your right foot. Go over your right shoulder to get to your left shoulder. You have to go over the right shoulder to get to the left shoulder. Okay? Yeah. And we're going to get into a squat position. From that squat position, arms out in front, I'm going to have you think of growing into the band with your breath. So inhale. You feel that cross pattern. Exhale. Inhale. Push into your foot, push into your shoulder, expand. Exhale. That's kind of like a hydraulic amplification of the core, right? Exhale. Now, we haven't gotten into our lat, we haven't gotten to our glute yet, but we'll do that next. Now, kicking with the banded leg, you're going to use your lat. But what I want you to do, your lat, it's been a long day, you're going to use your glute, okay? Put your other hand on your opposite side so you can see if you can feel the tensioning of that side when you kick back. Yes, kicking back into hip extension, right? Back. Can you feel it? Maybe not. Now let's work on the lat. So what does the lat do? It internally rotates and extends. So you're going to put your thumb of your opposite hand, not your right, but your left, because it's oppositional, right? Keep it long, the arm, tension. Yep, and keep it right at the thumb. And just make it like a semicircle, around, internally rotating the humeral head, right? Okay, now, putting that together would be start down here. Yep, opposition. So you're kicking back as you're pulling that lat. So you're bringing it into that circular pattern behind you. That's it. So that's working that one side of that cross pattern. Now take it off your leg for a minute, the shoulder. See if you can kind of feel that map. Sometimes people will say, wow, I really feel that. You know, sometimes they don't. I mean, it just depends on what their body is actually developed into with their actions of their life. Left foot next. Going up over the left shoulder to get to the right shoulder. and then coming into your squat pattern. People will often feel compromised more on one side than the other because they're compromised more on one side than the other, right, naturally. So come into your squat, hands out in front. This just makes it easy to extend. Inhale, exhale. Good. Inhaling, exhaling. Inhaling, exhaling. Beautiful. Now, adding the glute to that would mean you'd have to kick that leg down. Kick back. And you already know what you're going to do with your arms, so your arms start swinging already. It just naturally happens, right? And then go ahead and do just the arm. So you can break these down into sections, and then you put them together. So this is, again, just creating health or fostering the health of the continuities that we are designed with. Okay, and then take it off. Let's see if you feel the X. Now you have that feeling maybe of that mat being more symmetrical. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah, really nice. Okay, the next one we're going to do is the posterior longitudinal, which is your whole back line, your whole posterior chain. I'm going to have it from the hip down, not so much about the upper part. Standing in a position where you're double looped. Now, you might call this a hip hinge, or you might call it a deadlift. All kinds of names for these things. But what you're going to do is hinge at the hip joint. It's going to be maximal hip hinge, minimal knee and ankle flexion. Okay, so maximal hip flexion. So keeping your spine neutral, so try not to collapse because the band wants to pull you down. Keep a little stiffness. Hinging from the hip joint, let your arms just kind of spill forward, and then exhale, fire the glutes, and stand up. So loading that elastic tissue of the back line, and then lifting. Good. So you're feeling that tension. Go ahead and do it again. That tensional integrity as you're leaning into that, and then pulling up again. So hinging, and what happens is the band gives a little bit of elasticity to that, right? People feel that. Now, if it's too long for you, you can hold down like this, because you don't want to have to bend your elbows if possible, okay? If the band is too long, or step on more of it. So that's the bilateral. I'll show you first the unilateral, and then you can try it. So I'm going to step on this with my right foot, and then I'm going to take my left leg inside to go outside so that I'm on my left leg. So I'm going to turn this way. Is that okay if I turn this way? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that they can see me better. So watch what I do first, please. I'm going to pull it, much more important now, to keep the stiffness in my upper body. I'm going to pull my arms back, really feel that back line, and I'm going to hinge, pushing into the band, creating a gapping sensation at my hip socket, my acetabulum, and then come back up again. So notice how I didn't really round or change shape. I have to keep that tensional network. So go ahead and try that. Just pushing back into the band. The band should help you, right? And you've got the lighter one. It might not be as good for you because you're pretty strong, right? Does it feel okay though? Yeah. Okay. Can you feel how that could help someone find a hinge? Yeah. All right, I'll show you the next progression of that, which would be adding rotation. I'm going to show you how you can add rotation using the pelvis as a driver or the shoulder as a driver. So the first one I'll do with my pelvis. So I'm going to come into my hinge, and my pelvis is going to drive me into rotation. Okay?
This is where we fall, right?
And I hear all those noise, the clanking. Did you hear the clanking when you were over there? All right, then listen for a second. Then I could do it with my shoulder. I don't know if you could tell the difference, but if I get out here and I lead with my shoulder, so see, that wasn't working too well. Okay, if I lead with my shoulder and my hip follows, or I can lead with my pelvis and my shoulder follows. Okay, so you can cue and create that mindfulness about that. Okay, so try it. Notice how the pushing back is super important in the tension in your upper body. Drive with your pelvis, and then if you want to try driving with your shoulder, and you don't get good at things you don't practice, so this will be your homework. Okay. You can also do that, same thing, with the other leg. So I could have this leg be the back leg. The free leg is the back leg, and I can use the band to pull me into the rotation. So you can also add a rowing pattern to that with the leg in the, that's harder though, because you don't have that tensional network anymore on the leg. Okay? Pretty fun? Nice. Okay, so that's going to be working through. Try your other leg if you haven't already. Right, try the other leg. bulging. The gapping sensation is really good if you can push through that and visualize it, that acetabulum having space. You can go crazy with this. You can like